everyone. Happy Black History Month. My name is Brandon McGee, and I'm so excited to be hosting today's Talks at Google event. We are in store for a really amazing talk as we have the pleasure of being joined by Wilglory Tanjong. If you don't know who she is certainly someone you'll want to have on your radar in the future. Wilglory is a serial entrepreneur, YouTuber, author, Wharton MBA candidate, Princeton grad, and fashion designer who has been featured in Vogue, Elle, and Cosmopolitan. Wilglory is the founder of the African Hustle series and Anima Iris. The African Hustle series is a media platform that features young African entrepreneurs who are disrupting industries and bravely forging new paths at the nexus of business and innovation. Anima Iris is an elevated, ready-to-wear brand that is incorporating Africa into the global luxury fashion narrative through its bold and influential designs that are handcrafted in Senegal. I've had the honor of knowing Wilglory for the past 7 years, and I am truly inspired by her and excited for you to have the chance to hear her story. And we'll have a quick video for you to learn more.
When I learned that Africa was the youngest continent in the world, I thought, what exactly are these young people up to anyway? So I decided to find out. I purchased a ticket, and in 2 weeks I was in Accra, Ghana. In Accra, I was inspired by the businesses people my age had built. I wanted others, especially my African peers in diaspora, to see what I was seeing. As my mother would say, come and see what your mates are doing. Shortly after, I found a videographer whose vision aligned with my own. We started filming, and soon the African Hustle series was born. Accra, Nairobi, Dakar. In all these cities, I've witnessed the beauty of its people and the range and depths of our culture. The African spirit is the hustle that keeps these cities alive. Living on the continent for a long period of time in different countries continuously reminded me that Africa was the place to be. Everything about these cities, the good and the bad, made me feel alive again. People think you go to Africa to save her. Well, instead, Africa saved me. It gave me a renewed sense of purpose, meaning, and drive. Every day I witnessed and experienced her shortcomings was inspired to do something about it. There's so much work to be done to build up this continent. Our grandparents' generation was tasked with defeating colonialism. Our parents' generation was building nations out of colonialism's remnants. And now our generation, well, it's our duty to bring forth these nations into prosperity and glory. Are you up for the task?
Wilglory, we are so happy to have you here with us. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Oh my gosh, I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Brandon, for that amazing introduction. I can't believe it's been 7 years that we have been the best of friends. That's so awesome. To begin the presentation, I just want to talk a little bit about what I've been up to most recently with Anima Iris, my high fashion luxury brand situated in Dakar, Senegal. So I have a little presentation. And I wanted to show you guys a couple images and videos to really see how within a year my life has drastically changed ever since I quit my job. So here is what is going to be our operational space. So there's been a lot of demand in this last year since we launched Anima Iris. Literally next week is going to be our 1-year anniversary, and wanted to expand so that we can meet demand. So we have these renders of what the operational space is going to look like. So this is going to be our operational area, and then there's a second level that is going to serve as our residential area. So what you see on the left-hand side is something that's really important to me, which is that I wanted there to be a space for the community. So we have this massive table, and I'm going to invite young children into this area. And this is going to be like their corner where they can come, receive free food, receive a tour of the Anima Iris facility, and also be educated in some way. For me, it's really important that when you enter spaces, you're not just occupying it, but you're also finding ways to give back. On the right-hand side is going to be our Content Creation Center. Content creation is really at the core of what I do. And so you see the camera and the setup. And so that's what's going to be happening there. All right, so this is going to be the residential space, which I'm super excited about. So I don't have to stay in any more Airbnbs when I go to Dakar. So this is where I'll stay when I am in Dakar. And what's really exciting about this is that we're having a lot of what we're creating in this area also handcrafted by artisans in Senegal. So if you can see from the visuals, right, the chairs and the table and the bed, these were all handcrafted in Dakar. Something that I really love about Dakar and many African cities is that artisanal craftsmanship truly runs so deep. People are just so incredibly talented. And for me, it's an absolute honor to be able to bring that talent to the global landscape. Okay, so I'm going to play these two videos. And so this is the operational center. Currently, it pretty much started, the ground was just like actual just ground. We had to repaint the walls, add cement. So the first video is what the upstairs currently looks like. The second video is going to be what the downstairs looks like. All right, so as you can see, we definitely have a lot of work to do to get this space up to par, but I'm really excited about the progress that we have so far, that we've done so far, because where it started to where it is now to where it's headed, right, with all the different rendered images that our interior designer has created. I'm really excited about what's going to be. I think for me, I really am trying to reimagine how business can be done on the African continent and what it can look like. I think oftentimes when people see these kinds of very beautiful things, they always think, oh, this is probably somewhere, you know, in the Western world, or maybe when they see like beautiful bags, for example, right? I want to showcase and prove to people that you don't have to only get luxury handbags in Europe, that they can also come from Africa as well. And so really challenging preconceived notions of what Africa is, but really pushing people to see it as what it can be. All right, so I know we're going to get into this later on in our discussion with Brandon, but I'm really huge on manifesting. I think that I've gotten so far in life because I manifest. So with this new space, I shared this video on LinkedIn with me showcasing the space and saying how excited I am that we secured this new space. And at the very end, if you can see, I tagged two Penn alum, the CEO of Williams-Sonoma and the president of West Elm. And I just threw them in there. And what happened is, usually when I manifest, if I'm manifesting something, I keep it at the top of my mind. So I'm constantly thinking about it and constantly thinking about how am I going to get that thing that I really want. And, I had reached out to a friend who worked within Williams-Sonoma. I was like, oh my gosh, girl, I need to reach out. I need to get in contact with the president of West Elm. How am I going to do it? I really, really want to partner with West Elm. West Elm is like absolutely my favorite, like home decor type brand. And I wanted them to be part of this project and this space renovation that we're doing. And so when I created this LinkedIn post to share this video, I ended up adding the names of Laura and Alex. I just threw it in there, and then people started tagging them. The video went viral. It got like over 80,000 views. The CEO of LinkedIn commented on it, which was really cool. I was out that night and I was scrolling through my phone. I was like, the CEO of LinkedIn, how did he even see my video? And then, of course, the president of West Elm, he commented on it, which was so huge. And so I presented the project, what we're trying to do, why we're trying to do it. He absolutely loved the idea. And so now we're partnering with West Elm and they're giving us $10,000 to do so, which is so awesome. So a lot of the different things that, little bitty pieces that really make a house a home is, what we'll be getting from West Elm. So I'm really excited about that. And so that was a pretty fast turnaround for my manifestation. Something else that I really wanted to highlight is that oftentimes people think you need to know what you're doing before you actually do it. And that, I believe, is absolutely not the case. I have no idea what I'm doing, and every day I just get up and try and figure it out. And I think that's the thing about entrepreneurship. I think that's what's so exciting about entrepreneurship is that you are the one who have to solve all of these problems and learn along the way. I have no formal training at all in fashion. In my undergrad, when I was in Princeton, I studied African American history and I did African studies. I think I'm just a fashionable person, so I just know what looks good. But here is the behind the scenes for the Spring Summer 21 collection campaign. And in this video, you'll see it, but, someone will probably think, oh my gosh, this is so professional that I actually, knew what I was doing. But this was our second campaign that we've ever done. And I'm so excited to show you guys how it turned out. All right, so yes, please play the video. Oh, we gotta go. So, and we shot this video in Accra, Ghana, earlier in January. And the theme of the video was African culture meets high tea. I absolutely love this concept because rarely ever do you really see Black women in luxury and just, really just pursuing enjoyment in this manner. And so I'm really excited to have these images, not just out there for the campaign, but also images that can inspire people. And as at the core of everything I'm doing, really challenging a lot of preconceived notions of, Africanness and Blackness in general. And so here's how the images turned out. So they're absolutely captivating, and I really love them.
Awesome. Well, Glory, honestly, that was amazing. It was so nice there were so many nuggets and so many things that I want to really ask you about. So I'm just going to really get into this. I've known you for 7 years, and I've always known you to be passionate about African development, as you've mentioned. I'd love for you to tell us more how you first became interested in African development and why it's something that's so important to you.
Yeah, so I was born in Cameroon, but I grew up in America for most of my life. And I think that, it was during undergrad I became a lot more connected with my African identity. I think that in college, everyone is trying to connect and learn more about themselves and who they are. So when I was in undergrad, I started an African dance group. I, had African scholars come for conferences. And I really took part in the African and the Black community, did a lot of activism work. And so when I graduated, I started feeling like my passion and zest for life was gone. And so, of course, like I mentioned, when I saw, I read about Africa being the youngest continent in the world by age, I was like, what are young people up to? What are they doing? I know they have to be doing something amazing. Let me go see what it is. And there's so much, there's just so much opportunity on the continent. I think it's a continent that's really, really overlooked. But I think that with the right amount of obviously investment, but also with young people like myself in the diaspora, going back to the continent, partnering with people on the continent who have been there their entire lives, and with a common goal of elevating these countries and these cities, we really can create monumental change.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I 100% agree that the importance of, that taking those next steps towards that monumental change. And, after you graduated Princeton, you immediately went into corporate America, right? And so,
Yeah.
but you're not there right now. So I think we would love to hear more about, what that journey looks like for you, and like, how did you find yourself transitioning from corporate America to, your exploration of Africa?
Yeah. Okay. So working in corporate America, I was not a fan of it. I think that one thing I will say about the job I had is that because I didn't like it, quite frankly, it really forced me to think, like, what do I want from life? What is, I think this pandemic in particular has really emphasize something I've always known, which is just how fragile life is and how short it is. And that if you really have one life to live and you want to get up doing something you absolutely love every day, what is that thing going to be for me? So I ended up taking a leave of absence for almost 6 months. And that's when I traveled to Ghana for the first time ever. I had never been to Ghana. But honestly, I have a lot of Ghanaian friends, and I had, and then everyone had gone for Christmas the year before. And I was like, let me go see what the hype is all about. So when I was in Ghana, and I think this is like so much about my life is all about like fate, because when I was in Ghana, I met this amazing videographer, which you guys saw in the video. I wanted to like film what young people were doing and the young people I was meeting. And he loved the idea, was willing to contribute his talents to it. So much so that, not only did we film in Ghana, but then we traveled to Kenya together for a few months. And then we went to Senegal. And this is someone I had literally just met, right? Which, I usually wouldn't recommend traveling with strangers and living with them too that you just met. But Hans and I ended up becoming the absolute best of friends. And so even with the spring summer 2021 collection campaign, he's the one who shot it. And so every time we do anything together, I feel like we just make absolute magic. And I'm so like happy to like have him in my life and on my team. But if I had never taken that initial step, to figure out like, what do I really want from life? Everything that was laying ahead of, there for me would have like never happened.
Yeah, no, I definitely am like remembering like when you were heading to Africa and like keeping up with you there. And I was like, oh my gosh, like she's just doing such incredible things. And so I would love to hear more like, it sounds like very much like a explorational trip. You were going there. When did you realize that you had an idea that you could birth with the African Hustle series? Like, when did that click for you?
All right. So I saw like, I would go to like clubs or bars and, then I would be told that like, this is owned by a young person. So when I think like young, I'm usually talking about people like 30 years and under. And not say that, people 30 years and over are older, but just like more millennials. And then I would, like the shoe company that you saw, the restaurants, one of my favorite restaurants in Ghana, Chop Shop, that I ate at, or like Mama Rocks in Nairobi, which is incredibly delicious, that I ate at. Like these are all owned by young people. And so I started like realizing like, wow, young people my age are actually doing some really amazing things. And I wanted to highlight it. And honestly, like I thought it was going to be more so like I would have someone with like using my iPhone filming it. But then I came and then I met Hans. And I think that like having gone to Princeton, and you know this for sure, it's like we don't do nothing like like when you do something, you do it like well, right? And that had been like had been like really instilled in me to like always just truly put my best foot forward. And so the first episode we launched, from the African Hustle series was like so professional. You would have thought that like, oh, that's what I went to Africa to go do. Absolutely not. But I'm the kind of person that like when ideas come to me, I'm not afraid to pursue it. And I think that something else is really important that I wish like more people did, which is that, just being like not afraid to take risks in life. I think I take a lot of calculated risks, right? So even with going to Ghana, I knew I still had a job waiting for me back in the United States. I had savings. So I think it was a calculated risk. I wasn't going to like end up like homeless in Ghana, right? But I wish people did take a lot more calculated risks, and I wish people did, leverage any kind of privilege that they do have to be able to take those risks. Because I don't come from like a super wealthy family, and I don't have parents to fall back on either, right? But nevertheless, I believe in myself enough and I trust in myself enough to build something that's worthwhile and to take those risks.
Yeah, no, I think, those risks are things that have, definitely benefited you. And it was during a trip to Senegal where you were introduced to the artisanal community, and then you began designing, and you ultimately, gave birth to Anima Iris. Considering
My child.
Yes, your child, right? And so considering the beauty, the luxury, and the elegance of the Anima Iris collection, many folks might be surprised to hear that you had never had any formal designing training like you shared. So I have two questions here. How did you start designing, and when did you know that this would be a business opportunity?
I like sometimes I see like when I think about my life, I'm like, it's absolutely nuts. Nothing about it makes sense. So we went to Senegal, and I've been trained in French like in undergrad, but I was taking French by force at Princeton just so I could graduate. And so by the time like Hans and I get there, like we can barely order in French, right? So this is how bad my French was. So now on a day-to-day basis, I communicate with all of my artisans in French, right? So my French has gotten, drastically better over the years. But yeah, so I meet these amazing artisans, and I'm just so interested in, how you draw something and it just like becomes an actual real thing. I thought that was so amazing. So one of the very first things that I designed was the Zaria, which is actually these two bags right here that's shaped like a trapezoid. And what happened was I saw an ad on Instagram actually for like some kind of like phone stand. And that's where I got the idea of, the trapezoid shape from. And I built the bag myself out of like magazines and papers in the house. Truly not me tearing up this Airbnb ladies magazines. So I built this bag and I took it to the artist that I had met, and I'm like, we need to make this. And so he, obviously leverages his artisanal skills and he builds it. And I knew that this could become a business really when I saw what I had made. And it was mostly on my Instagram close friends that I was like asking people, do you guys like this? What should I change about it? Because I had created like different iterations of just different styles I had was just drawing literally for fun. And people were like, they really, really liked it. And there were some designs I honestly really didn't like. Honestly, the Zuri, which is the top row, is a design I was not a fan of, honestly. And one of my friends, Brandon Holt, let me give him a shout out. Brandon Holt loved the design, and he gave me different ideas on, how to make it better. And because of him, the Zuri exists today. And so I think it's honestly really crazy that I have no design background at all. But I just, I know things like when they're beautiful, and obviously the feedback of my friends as well. But I think that just really speaks to how sometimes when you're building something, you're creating something, you don't have to have it all figured out. You just kind of figure it out along the way. And then you also discover talents you didn't know you had. I've always loved fashion. I used to have it was actually a really big Vogue book when I was a kid, and I've always loved looking good, and people would always be like, oh, where'd you get that from? I'd always been told that you should create your own line of clothes, because people liked how I dress. So I started thinking like, oh, like maybe people actually buy these bags because they'll probably start commenting on Instagram, oh, where'd you get that bag from? And yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And there's a powerful significance that's behind the name Anima Iris. Can you tell us more about the name behind the brand?
Yeah, so a lot of people call me Anima Iris in emails a lot. Even when I sign the email, like regards, Wilglory Tanjong, people will still be like, "Hey, Anima." But yeah, so Anima Iris. So Anima is the name of my childhood best friend. It's actually her middle name. So if anyone who's Ghanaian that's watching this will recognize the name Anima because it is a Ghanaian name. And then Iris is the name of my mom. My mom was, just the best person I had ever known. She actually passed my senior year in college. And so I knew that, in creating anything in life, I was always going to name it after her. I told myself, I was like, I'm going to name my first child after my mom, whether it's a boy or a girl, I don't care. And I'm going to name, this brand after her. I think it's so important for me to be able to like kind of bring her legacy to the forefront. And so when we were featured in Vogue and I saw my mom's name there, like in Vogue, and, people were, resharing it and talking about Anima Iris, it's so emotional for me because it's like, yes, my mom is not around anymore, but there's so much power in speaking names and really keeping her legacy alive. And though, people will never get to know her for the same ways that I knew her, but they will know who she was and that she was a person who, was once here and she did all these amazing things. And so I always try to highlight her as much as I can. Her birthday is actually coming up this year. February 14th, she's a Valentine's Day baby. And so, currently thinking about ways of how we'll celebrate her as we celebrate Black History Month over at Anima Iris this month.
That's so incredible. And, I've had the pleasure of meeting your mom and she was amazing. And I remember
she loved you.
Yeah, I remember she was giving me food and all these things. I was like, oh my gosh, I love her.
She would bring us food at Princeton.
Yeah, she would. So honestly, I think, personally thinking about this, I think she would be really proud of the legacy that you've created. And, I think that's something that's so powerful, and the intention and the thought that you put behind that is really powerful. And it just goes to show all the lessons that your mother instilled in you, and you're living out those things in the life today. Yeah. So all the seeds that she put into the ground, you're reaping, right? And I think that's the incredible thing about it.
And I just want to say that something else, like I only had my mom, and she and I were just so close. And when you're like, I just graduated, I moved to a new city where I didn't know anyone. And so even like deciding to take a leave of absence was really big for me. I was like, oh my gosh, am I choosing to do the wrong thing? And I kept thinking like, what would my mom say, right? How would she react? And I know like, African parents are very like, like they really want you to be successful and they sacrifice so much for you to be in the position that you are. And you don't ever want to like throw that away. But something that's really different about my mom is that she just wanted me to be happy. Like that was like one of the most important things. She wanted me to be happy. And and so I was able to take those risks as well, knowing that like my mom would have been like, you know what, you should go do it. You should go see what's going to happen. And she was also like a super fashionable person as well. So all of it just makes sense. All of it just makes sense.
It all made sense. So something you kind of talked on a little bit about earlier, I really want to circle back to luxury fashion. As you mentioned, it's often associated with European brands. So what role do you believe you play in changing the global understanding of what luxury is?
Yeah, I think that, because usually people think about luxury, they think about like Paris comes to mind, Italy, right, comes to mind, France. Well, France is in Paris, but okay, let me list like Milan, Paris, and cities like that. And I think that usually, when something is made in Milan, that means it is of higher quality. or that it is worthwhile and is a worthwhile investment. But I think that what I'm really trying to do is like challenge that notion, right? And for people to then think like Dakar, and then they also think luxury, because even when you see the furniture, right? For example, like an artisan built that from scratch. These bags are created from scratch using very few machines. The talent runs so deep. And something else I think is really important is like Black people created style. No one can tell me any different. Black people created style. And, you know, like in African cultures, how you look and how you dress is, you know, just really, really important. And so when you think about the fact that a lot of African countries never really industrialized, right? You'll realize that a lot of what they are making today when they're making clothes, when they're making shoes, when they're making jewelry, is still really by hand. And so that handmade nature of, you know, this kind of craftsmanship that doesn't overly rely on machinery, is truly rooted in Africa. Whereas in comparison to a lot of other brands, most of it is actually made by machines, but then they'll be like, it's handmade. But yeah, and so with Anima Iris, if you don't follow us on Instagram, you should. What I do is that I really bring people into that process, which is something that's really, really unique, is that people usually don't see the behind the scenes of like how their bags are made. Like, is it, you know, are you sure it's not a sweatshop happening? Like, no, you know, people, you know, on the Anima Iris Instagram story, you know, they meet the artisans, they know the artisans by name, and they know who's making their bags. I have a really close relationship with all of my artisans. We joke a lot, we laugh a lot because I spend so much time with them. And I think really seeing that process really pulls people into not just how bags are made, but also too, like what this this craftsmanship scene even looks like. And so that when they finally get their bag, they're like, oh yes, Malik made this bag. I know that for a fact. I saw it on the Instagram story, and I saw how long it took to make, and it becomes something that's a lot more special. I think luxury items should feel special.
Yeah, I definitely think that people are realizing the special, the brand, the specialness of this brand, as evidenced by the fact that it's grown exponentially in the past year, right? You know, in the past year, you launched last February, and then we're coming up on that 1 year anniversary. And since then, you've been highlighted in Vogue, as I mentioned, Cosmopolitan, Elle, and on Beyonce's website. You know, so I think a bunch of us at Google are in the marketing business, and so I think we would love to hear more about like how do you market your business, and what tactic have you found to be the most successful?
Oh, wow. Not you asking me how to do your job. Well, here's what I'll say. I think that what Anima Iris has truly been a benefactor of is two things. One, as a result of COVID, right? Everyone has been online. I mean, especially when COVID started, people didn't really like know what to do and like what they would now be doing. And so the only thing that you could do was go online. And so everyone was online trying to discover new brands, new pages, new influencers, things like that to follow. So I think because a lot of people were online, we were a benefactor of that. So when we created great content, people were looking forward to that content to really kind of, you know, pull them away from the realities of quarantine life. And then I think too, with the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement, I think people really started asking themselves, you know, how can I make my money go further? How can I be more intentional about where I'm putting my money? How can I, you know, really support Black-owned businesses? And how can we be more considerate and intentional with how we are supporting Black people in this country and Black people globally, honestly? I think a lot of companies were asking themselves that question, and we benefited from that because then when Anima Iris launched, people started asking, okay, well, you know, these luxury brands that like, you know, won't even say Black Lives Matter, I don't want to buy from them. What is a luxury Black-owned brand that I can buy from that that's going to give me a bag that I'll love. And they came across Anima Iris, and of course, being featured on Beyonce's website, love her, or being featured in Cosmo and Vogue. I mean, even the Vogue feature honestly just like came out of nowhere. And so, but here's the thing. I don't have like a proven method for how to grow a business. But I will say that when people did find out about Anima Iris, they would come to the page, they would see the content that was there, they'd be interested in it, and they would fall. And I think that's really important. It's like having your presence, like the website was put together by the time we were featured on Vogue. So, probably when the Vogue editor like found out about Anima Iris, like they went to the website and it wasn't looking crazy. So they were like, oh, like this is like a legitimate business. Like, let's feature it. Because I didn't even know about the Vogue feature literally until it happened. But when we started initially building out our audience, we leveraged like these Instagram communities. And so something that's really cool about like Black culture, I guess like only Black people who are part of like this Black ecosystem on Instagram would know about, is that there are these pages that have like 500,000, 1 million, 2 million followers. And they just like post like funny memes, stuff like that. You can, you learn about like just all types of things that like, just like funny videos from Black people, memes, and, just all different types of things. You can actually advertise on their page. So when we were building our first business, and I'll give a shout out to my roommate and best friend, Philomena, she created like these ads for us where people wouldn't really realize that it was an ad, but it was. And so they'd be like, oh my gosh, like this brand is so cool. These bags are so nice, and then we would take advantage of different trends. Like one of the trends at the time was like the brand owner and the brand, right? So you'd have like the bags and you'd have the brand owner, and then we would like make that an ad. People didn't realize that was an ad. They would think it was just like a meme, right? And so because people never want to think like they're actually being sold something, because they want to think like they bought it on their own accord. So I guess that could be marketing, but barely. But that's how we built our initial audience. And then of course, when you create shareable content, people are going to reshare. And then our following, grew from like 200 followers in February, and we ended, the year with like 30,000 followers on Instagram. But I think like what, in terms of like engaging the community, like I said, like I bring people along. I'm super active on the Instagram story. I'm always open with people like responding and, messaging me. Like I have so many like little internet friends who like I would really love to meet in real life because they've always been so supportive. So yes, that's how we did it, building our initial core audience.
I mean, that's an amazing origin story, and to see like how things have advanced and how things have been iterated, and how you've been able to connect and sync into what is relevant in culture and bring that to your business and make that marketable. I think that's incredible. So our Black History Month theme at Google this year is Still I Rise, which is inspired by Dr. Maya Angelou's poem. So a question for you: how has overcoming challenges and obstacles like shaped your life? What has been the role of challenge in your life?
Oh my gosh, I feel like all my life at one point, all I knew was suffering. It was like everything was just a challenge. But, so I'll say like, all right. So growing up, I have two sisters. Let me not say my sisters are still around. I have two sisters. My mom was diagnosed with cancer when I was 8 years old. So that was something that was, that was a part of my life for such a long time. My parents split up when I was like 14 years old, and then my dad became a non-factor in my life. And so with my father gone and my mom battling cancer, my family fell into a financially precarious situation. And it was really hard, seeing my family going from basically, I mean, like when you're young, you don't really think about like what middle class or upper class is or whatever, but I think my family was like middle class, like, just like average family, we could afford things. And I think that was really hard. But I think like one of the things that was hardest for me was like not seeing my mom happy. And one thing that always made her happy, real typical African mom, was like good grades. And so being able to bring home like straight A's meant everything to me. And knowing that like I was going to come home, my mom, was laying in bed going through chemo. I knew like that was going to make her smile. That really pushed me. And so there came a point where I feel like I was just, succeeding academically, because like, if not for me, for my mom, something my mom always said is that, there's nothing that, she can give me in this life more than like a good education. And so she really, really prioritized education. And getting to where you want in life, I think is all about, it's all about like, the finesse, the hustle, and like trying to figure it out, right? So for example, I knew my mom couldn't afford to pay for like SAT testing and things of that nature. And I was like, all right, listen, I got to get into this Ivy League school because they told me if I get in, then, it's going to be free. And I needed a free education because I knew my mom couldn't afford that. So I just took like literally like 20 ACT tests in like 2 weeks. And I scored really well, right? And so like throughout my life, it's been all about like, how am I going to still get that same thing without having like maybe that financial capacity to do so? And so like overcoming challenges, it's like you can't see it as a roadblock ever. You just have to see it as one of those things that, you need to get over. It's like, how are you going to do it? What resources do you have available to you to do it? And also recognizing that like overcoming a lot of those hurdles actually is going to make you stronger, and is actually going to teach you a lot about yourself and the world.
Yeah, no, that's so inspiring. I think there's just so many good nuggets of wisdom here. I'm wrapping up on 2 more questions here, but I do want to, make space for the Googlers to ask questions. So just a reminder here to have any questions, please submit your questions into the YouTube chat window for me to ask Wilglory. All right, so something that we were talking about was manifestation. And many people here probably have seen the word manifestation a lot, especially in the past year. It really has grown. I even checked Google Trends to see that it has actually grown. The data proves it to be true. And it's grown amongst life coaches as well. So what has been the role of manifestation in your life? You kind of talked about it, but would love to hear more about, the way that you experience manifestation.
Yeah, I manifest everything in my life, honestly. I feel like I manifest everything. And like, when I manifested this West Elm partnership, and then they were like, you know what, and we're going to give you $10,000, to choose whatever from the website. I was like, oh my God, I am so powerful. I was like, I'm at the point where I'm like, am I even manifesting enough? Like, what do I need to manifest next? I feel like the only thing I haven't been able to manifest is like relationships, romantic relationships. Like, I have not been able to manifest that, but I can manifest just about anything. But I think it's just about like how you keep like what you want at the top of mind. And with manifesting, you have to like, you can't be too vague about it, but you also don't have to be specific, right? I knew I wanted to work with West Elm, and I knew, and I'd done enough research to figure out who the people were within my network, right? Like I'm a Wharton student, and these are Penn alums that lead West Elm and Williams-Sonoma, right? So I was like, all right, that's what we have going for us. Like, how am I gonna like, make that happen somehow, some way? But you also don't have to be super specific. Like I wasn't gonna like be like, I want to work with West Elm and I want them to give me X amount of money to do so. Or, I'm gonna go on West Elm and like choose these towels and be like, this is going to be part of, the partnership that we're doing. No, but I think it needs to be specific enough, because ultimately, like, it would, in my day-to-day life, I would get up every day and like West Elm was at the top of my mind. Like I was always thinking, how am I going to make this West Elm partnership happen? Or how am I going to make this partnerships with other brands that I was really interested in happen as well? And, I do that a lot with like, let me see, what else have I manifested? I feel like even with, the operational space, something else about manifestation is that maybe you're manifesting for something that you don't expect to happen for a long time, but then when the opportunity presents itself, you should definitely be ready to go. I did not expect that we would have this new operational space, operational and residential space, happening right now. I actually had planned that we would start looking at spaces. Like I was just looking at spaces just to see what was out there. And then in a couple months, actually I wanted it to be this summer, right, when I finished school and like really had time to build out this operational space. That's when I thought we were going to expand. But then, with the holidays, there just had so many orders and we're just growing so quickly. The audience was growing, the engagement was growing, the demand was increasing, and it just was no longer possible to work in the ateliers of my artisans. And I was like, oh my gosh, we have to expand. And that was at the time that I was like, already looking for places. And I had been, like manifesting and thinking about, what I really wanted a cool, unique space. Like that's what I had been manifesting. Like I didn't want you to go in there and feel like, oh, this is a warehouse. Yeah. They make stuff here. Like, no, I wanted it to be really cool and unique, but I didn't have any idea what that was going to look like, how much that was going to cost, how I was going to, afford it and things of that nature. But when the opportunity presented itself, oh my goodness, you just have to be ready to go. And because I came in to rent the space from someone who they were going to rent the space, but they didn't have the upfront money, I'm thinking in French, the landlord wanted. And, so I was like, oh my gosh, this is my time, this is my chance. And I just went in and we're just so lucky to have this massive space. You just have to be ready. So even when you're manifesting, be ready for it to come sooner or later. But always be ready to go for sure.
Awesome. I think that's something that's very powerful that people will be able to take from with them. And I think I've been thinking about what's the role of manifestation in my own life. And so that's really powerful. So last question that I'm going to ask, what piece of advice would you give to individuals who might have a business idea and they seek to become an entrepreneur, but they're just not sure where to begin? What would you tell them?
Start. Just start. I feel like, people either see this talk and be like, this girl is absolutely crazy. She takes every risk possible, which, is mostly what I do. Or people are going to be inspired, right? I hope people are inspired, but people need to realize a lot of the most amazing things that have ever been built, people didn't think, I was ever going to build something like that amazing. For example, you think about Amazon, it's what kind of skill sets do you need to build an Amazon, right? Do you need to know how to code? Do you need to know, did you need to get an MBA? I don't think the founder of Amazon even has an MBA. I don't believe so. I know he went to our school though. But so that means that I could have founded Amazon if that is his only credential. And so people just need to start. And I think you need to have you have to have a concise vision and a big vision, but you need to be ready to alter it as well. Because you don't know where life will ever take you. You also need to remember that your customers, the people you serve actually should be the ones driving the business and should be driving, where the business is headed, because ultimately they're going to tell you what they want from your product, and be flexible. But in order to ever do anything, you have to start. I know people will, they'll take every course out there, they'll watch every YouTube video, they'll read every single book on how to be an entrepreneur, how to do this, whatever, how to, account, figure out accounting. How are you figuring out accounting before you even make any money? So it's so important to just start, to make mistakes along the way, and to learn from them, and to allow that to, push you to grow, and to realize that so many different opportunities will come your way that you didn't even think about when you wanted to start this business. I think people are overly prepared, and I'm never overly prepared. I'm always prepared just enough. And I think that is what has allowed me to get so far in life, because I don't spend time preparing. I spend time working on what I actually want to do and getting to where I want to be, instead of, just only preparing for how I'm going to get there, but I'm already working on how I'm going to get there.
Yeah, that's rich. Being able to really take that time to life has prepared you, right? And so just taking the
life
risk,
has prepared you. Yes.
Life has prepared you, right? And so being able to take those moments that you've learned and everything that even if you're not, I totally get where you're coming from, because even if those risks might seem calculated, those risks are very calculated, but to others they might seem like, how could somebody ever do this? Like, how could somebody ever do this? How could I do this? How could I make those steps? But life has prepared you. I love that.
No, I think that's actually a really good point. So before we take audience questions, like, I think like the Wilglory who, you know, was coming home, rushing to finish her homework so that she could like take like the practice test of the day so she could get a good score, so she could get into an Ivy League institution. Like, that is the kind of training that has prepared me to like know that like if I have hustled my way into, you know, one of the best schools in this world, like I can definitely hustle my way into figuring out X, Y, and Z about this business. And like those are like, I think oftentimes we forget that like those kinds of experiences in which you have like overcome other challenges are actually like, you know, they'll teach you more. You've learned more from it than any book, any talk, any, you know, video could ever teach you, any class, any degree could ever really teach you.
Yeah, that's rich. All right, so now we're going to move on to audience questions. We got a couple of good ones in here, so I'm excited to go through them. All right, first question. What are your top 3 favorite brands?
Ooh, like in fashion or, well, obviously there's Anima Iris. I actually love what I create. So, but I think fashion, okay. I love, so I'm wearing Effie Noel right now, actually. It's a Black-owned brand that I absolutely love. Another brand that I love for jewelry is where I got this necklace from, Parade. That's another brand that I really love. They have really cute, like Afro-inspired, African-inspired jewelry that I really, really like. And I also love Kin Apparel. They have like these really cool satin-lined hoodies as well. So those are 3 brands to definitely check out. Effie Noel, Kin Apparel with satin-lined hoodies, because, you know, it protects your natural hair from like getting dried out or even like ruining your hair, honestly. And then also Parade, Perade, for jewelry.
Awesome. Yes, and I stand by Kin Apparel 100%. The natural.
Yeah, you have the hoodie, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the founder went to our school. So I feel like we've like really been through all the different iterations of the hoodies that she's made. So really proud of her and how far she's come.
Yeah, and I think it's also incredible how you're able to, you know, you have an entrepreneurial household, and that's really incredible. That energy that you are able to curate together, which is pretty.
Yeah, so you can see we have all these bags here, but here is also my roommate's business, which is from Kin Apparel. So of course I'm a huge fan of my friends, but yeah, so it's basically a warehouse that I live in.
All right, we'll go on to the next audience question now.
How do you keep yourself motivated? Yeah. Oh, sorry, not me reading. You can read the question, Ruth.
How do you keep yourself motivated even in the tough situations? How do you handle pressure and stress?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think this is, you know, I'm not gonna lie, like I think people always pretend like here's a checklist of self-care things that I do. No, like I'm stressed out a lot. I struggle with resting, with just like, because I feel like I'm always like moving, that like, you know, like when it's time to just like relax, like I struggle with relaxing. I'm like, all right, like maybe I should just send an email right now, you know, just to be like, I'm always, you know, because I think like in America, especially American capitalism, is like actually like crazy. Like we work like actually way too much. But I think that it's an ever evolving question, because where I am in life and what I'm dealing with is ever evolving, right? How do you manage school? How do you manage a business? How do you manage relationships in your life? Like I've realized, like, you know, my friendships have, you know, really, really taken a back seat to my business. And I don't like that at all, because if I don't have friends, like that, what am I going to do? You know? So, I'm constantly trying to figure out how to manage all of those things, but I am aware. I think the most important thing is being aware that like you are stressed and that you need to relax, and that you need to take a break, and that's really really important. Something I always have to remind myself, and something my mom always said, is that without your health, you have nothing. If you are not well, you'll never. If I'm not well, I can never lead Anima Iris. I'll never have the capacity to do what I need to do in school, and I won't have the capacity to be the friend that I want to be to my friends. And so you have to prioritize yourself, but and really ensure that you are okay, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. But recognizing that like you'll never be okay for like long periods of time, or that it won't always be perfect. Those periods of stress will happen, but how you deal with them, and how you deal with them, as they come and as you evolve, because one day I'll like have a family, and that's a different kind of stress, right? So it's all it all depend.
Yeah, and I love that, keeping that wellness top of mind of where am I, and doing those temperature checks internally of like, how am I feeling? What does that mean? And like, what is it that I need right now to ensure that I'm able to keep going? I think that's rich.
And checking in with your friends too, like, I think people often forget that you're not the only one experiencing that. I have a lot of friends who are entrepreneurs, and so it helps to like think through entrepreneur problems with them and be like, oh my gosh, this is really stressing me out. But also like, we always forget that like your other friends also have like a lot of stressful things happening in their lives. And sometimes it just helps, not to like link up with stress, but to just kind of like be like, here's like, how are they dealing with things, right? Or how are they not? And then realize like, listen, we both need to do better. So like also just being open. I think people like struggle silently a lot because they want to appear perfect. And I hate doing that. I know like people are like, oh my gosh, you've done all these things. Like, you're so amazing. Blah, 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 blah. Like on my Instagram, I talk often about things I'm struggling with because I don't want people to think I'm perfect, because I'm not perfect at all. Yeah, I'm really not, and I'm not interested in portraying this like really fake perfect life. There's nothing to gain from that. But being open about your struggles, because you never know who can help you.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we have time for one last question, so let's see what it is. Hi, Wilglory. Love Anima Iris. Based on your experiences in life, what advice would you give to your younger self?
What advice would you give to my younger self? I always like see other people like answer these questions. Advice I'll give to my younger self is like, girl, keep following your gut. Like I have very strong instincts. And it was, my manager at my summer internship, Ida. Hey girl, who, she was giving me, so she had been my manager for 2 summers, and she was giving me my like final feedback. And she told me, and after having, gone through managing me for 2 summers, she was like, well, Gloria, you have very strong convictions. Always follow your instincts, always follow those convictions and allow it to lead you places. And I wrote that down, and whenever I'm like dealing with something, I always think about that, and I always follow my convictions. And that is exactly what I would tell my younger self, because I think Wilglory, before Ida's advice, would second guess those instincts, and would not always follow my gut feeling, and tell her like, girl, always follow your gut feeling, always follow those instincts. My instincts have never led me astray. And so I think that is definitely what I would tell my younger self, and what I keep telling myself every day.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that we can all definitely learn from and benefit from, and thinking more about. I know we're coming to the conclusion of this, but before I conclude, did you have any like last words or anything that you wanted to share, or any last pieces of advice you wanted to share?
Yes. I feel like this is like, in interviews where you're like, oh, do you have a question for me? And it's like, I sure do. You just gotta make something up real quick. No, but actually do have something I want to share, which is that, for a lot of people, whether you want to pursue something entrepreneurial, or you want to, change something about your life, and just anything, that you want to pursue in life that you've been really nervous about. I think oftentimes we think about like, well, what if I fail? What if things don't go right? And then instead ask yourself, like, what if I succeed? And what if things do go really, really well, right? Like when I quit my job, I was like, oh, well, and I also quit my job like at the very beginning of the pandemic, by the way. So it was very, very risky. And it was like, and this was before I even knew I was going to apply to Wharton, which is a whole different story. Like I applied to Wharton like 3 days before, and then I got in. So I feel like I basically just kind of like fell into business school. But I kept thinking like, oh my gosh, like what if I fail? What if no one buys Anima Iris during the pandemic, which is like, a very valid thing to think, because like right. It's also like a financial crisis. But then also thinking, well, actually, what if I succeed, right? And there's something that I once heard the founder of Spanx say, which someone asked her, well, what if you worked for those 2 years and Spanx just never took off? And she was like, never took off? And the way she said it was so funny to me, because she was like, what do you mean never took off? Like, of course it was going to succeed, because I was going to make sure that it succeeded. I was going to do everything in my power to make sure that it succeeds. And I think we often forget that like so much of our destiny is actually within our own hands. Like, yes, there's destiny where it's like you are destined for this, but there's also destiny, whereby we have a lot more control and agency than we think we do. And, with Anima Iris, I don't think like, oh man, I hope it succeeds. It's like, no, I get up every day and I'm like, oh, this business is about to succeed for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Wilglory, I want to thank you again for this very fruitful conversation and sharing valuable insights with all of us. I want to invite all of you watching, whether live or watching the video on YouTube, to consider checking out the spring summer collection of Anima Iris for your next luxury bag purchase, and also subscribe on the social channels. Once again, thanks everyone for joining us, and happy Black History Month.
Thank you so much for having me. This was absolutely wonderful. Loved being here. Hopefully we'll be able to come and visit you in person at Google sometime, post pandemic. But yeah, thank you so much everyone for tuning in, listening to what I had to say. Of course, check out the spring summer collection. But more importantly, I think, following us on Instagram, watching the journey, a lot of people are really inspired by how I'm building Anima Iris. And I think like, if I can just keep inspiring folks, that makes my life like more meaningful. So yes, do follow us and have a great Black History Month. Power to the people.
Yes. Happy Black History Month, everyone.